And we're live now. What's going on, everyone? And I hope you're all doing well. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Xbox Roundtable Podcast. This is episode number 195. Always a great place on a Sunday night just to kick back with a cold one and listen to some Xbox talk and more from around the game industry. This is your host, Invader, and I've got to say, I'm really excited to get into tonight's show. Joining us tonight is a very special guest. We have Luis Antonio, the game director for his recently released thriller 12 Minutes. Everyone in the chat, please give him a warm welcome. Luis, thank you for joining us. How are you doing?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty good. Very glad to be able to finally talk about the game and have everyone playing it. It's been a labor of love, and it's cool that it's finally out and having a chance to chat with people that, have delayed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly. Well, we've all of us on the panel have gotten a chance to play it. We certainly have our thoughts, and we cannot wait to discuss this title with you. Again, we're very excited. But first, let me introduce the TXR panel members, starting with Tim Dog. Tim, what's up, buddy?
How you doing? Very happy to have this guest, and big fan of the game, and it's going to be a great show. Happy to be here at this late time. Thanks for everyone for showing, and just looking forward to the show and the interview.
Mm-hmm. Well said, brother. Eric Shockley, buddy, how you doing, man? Are you all moved in over there now?
Yeah, we're getting there. It's my movers come Wednesday, so that's when all the big stuff will be moved over. But so far, just getting the little things over. But it was nice last night when I was bringing my wife to the house, and one of the big intersections, because it's kind of out like in the suburbs, like it's pretty quiet. There's not really any police around there because there's not really any crime. But there's a pretty big intersection that's right off the interstate, and there's like 50 mostly Dodge Chargers doing donuts in the middle of the intersection, probably for 5 or 10 minutes. And I'm just like, great, this is because I could just tell like her thinking like, oh god, where do we move to now? But I was like, don't worry, it's probably not going to happen at this location again. Otherwise, they'd get busted. But I was just like, really?
All right.
That was kind of nuts. People just standing in the middle of the intersection filming. I'm like, I'm in Indiana. Like, what? Like, you guys, come on. This isn't like we're in the middle of a cornfield. It's like, oh boy.
All right.
But yeah. That was my exciting weekend.
All right, well, that's good to hear, Shock. All right. Better be prepared for some drag racing there. Moving on down the list. General MLD, buddy. Hey, hope you're having a nice weekend. How are you?
Hey, good to be here. Glad to have our guest, Luis Antonio. 12 Minutes was definitely one of the more unique games I've played in a long time, so happy to be able to chat about it, to gain some insight. Otherwise, been doing good. I'm about 26 hours into Assassin's Creed Odyssey right now. I'm really getting into it. So that game's just a rabbit hole. There's so many things to do, but that's what I've been playing this week. So let's have a great show.
All right, well said. And to round this out, Centurion, how you doing, man?
I am doing good. It is Sunday night. It is time to talk games. And at the mention of a rabbit hole, how can we not mention this amazing game, 12 Minutes? Excited to talk about the game with the director, get to know him, find out exactly kind of what's going on in his mind to help create a game that is essentially a rabbit hole. I sat down for what I thought was just a few hours. Turned out I stayed up till 3 o'clock in the morning trying to figure out exactly what was going on in this situation. Oh my God. But yes, let's get into this. I'm excited. Been thinking about this all week.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, and we will certainly dive into that. But before we do, just a quick reminder to everybody listening in that you can find us on a number of different audio platforms: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. You know the drill, guys. There's a number of different options for you. Just search TXR, and you'll find your favorite Xbox podcast on the go. All right, well, let's kick things off here. I will not waste any more time. Luis, as of right now, people are familiar with you because of, as we're just talking about, 12 Minutes, your newly released title. But just to give everybody listening in, like, a sense of who you are, like, what kinds of, like, games, projects, and studios have you previously been a part of and worked on?
I started to work for, I started my career at Rockstar Games in London. I work at Manhunt 2, Midnight Club LA, Max Payne 3. Then I moved to Ubisoft in Canada, in Quebec, where I worked for a few years too as art director on some titles that are not that great. The only one to mention would be Dance on Broadway. There was a fighting game called Power Up Heroes, and the rest is not really important. Then I was a bit fed up with AAA industry, so I left. I moved to California, where I worked with Jonathan Blow on The Witness for like 3.5 years, focusing on the art and the visuals of the island, and that's it. And then 12 Minutes.
All right, very interesting. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty impressive portfolio there, going from Rockstar to Ubisoft, and then settling into like the indie space. What made you really want to like just dive into indie game creation, if you don't mind me asking? What was that drive? Just, again, you were just fed up with AAA in general and just wanted to branch out?
I think the main reason was like in AAA, it's the moment a team is a bit too big, you end up having the way you make a game is very different. Everything is slower. There's all these things that go up and down, the leads and producers and whoever is giving money to the project. And I like a lot to get more involved in, like you see these really cool ideas getting beaten up into something really generic to feed as many people as possible, which I understand because there's a lot of money involved. But I wanted to see what happens if I work in a project where, that's not the way things are done. So I just wanted to try it out.
Okay. All right. Well said. I can totally understand that. Shockley, buddy, you're up next. What would you like to ask our delightful guest here? Oh, and I think...
I apologize. My headset went out right there.
Gotta love it. Yeah, go ahead, Shock.
Sorry, my mic lost connection there for a second. No, I thought it was pretty cool with the because at first I was kind of just like, I know there's got to be, because I was thinking like, I wouldn't say like less of the game, but I was just thinking like, there's no way it went to like this detail of things like you could do. And I think one part when I just discovered something I could harm, like the Willem Dafoe's character in a certain way with one of the weapons, I was like, really? Or I gave him kind of like I had to intimidate him in some way to kind of change his lingo or change his dialogue around from the questions that because he kept like.
Oh.
For my character. The same.
Oh.
I think my audio's like. That's what
yeah, your mic is coming out.
Yeah. We'll tell you what, Shockley, we'll give you a minute there to sort stuff out. We'll move on, but you make some good points there, bud. Tim, buddy, we'll head up next to you.
Well, first off, I want to say Thank you for doing something like this because I find in the industry that there is a lot of generic type games that are done over and over, and um, you could say different skins of different types of games, but they're just kind of all the same. Your game is absolutely unique. I do not remember a game that used this type of style, and I appreciate that because I think that basically you pretty much created, in my opinion, a new style of game. I definitely think that you're going to have clones of this, and that's going to come down the road because you've done it so well. My question to you is that did you go in to creating this game with the idea of creating something that was never done before and that's new to the industry, or is it just something that you had in your mind all along?
Um, yeah. Well, really glad you see it that way. It's pretty cool. um, the I think there's a couple of different ways to design games. And like usually there's this approach that you're talking where you use kind of a formula, right? Where some things work. Let's do a fighting game or an RPG or whatever, and then you build on that. But the way I like designing games personally, it's more where you just start with an idea, but you let that idea tell you kind of what it's supposed to be. So in this case, it was just literally the concept of, I want to do something about the accumulation of knowledge. And how could I make a game about that? Which I had no idea. Like literally, I had no idea what it would be. And I love point and click games, but doing games with heavy dialogue, it was never something that attracted me. But as I tried to play with ideas on what's cool about knowing what you just lived, I always kept running into, if there's people involved and if it's about the way you perceive these people, it always gets more interesting. So I was like, okay, so I need to do something in this type of games. And if I'm involving people and if I want to do more than just shooting or platforming or whatever, what is the best genre that allows you to have this richness of interactions? And so slowly, right, answer after answer, it just kind of ended up being what it is, but I had no idea what that would become, which is what I like, right? It's this process of discovery that I find more interesting in development. But yeah, I had no idea.
Well said, well said. And like I said, thank you for that because I really am enjoying the game, and for myself, I'm 45 years old, so I've been since the onset of games. It's just nice to have new types of games come up and come about, and you've done a great job here with this game.
Cool, glad to hear that.
So, now you actually said something very interesting to me. You said the accumulation of knowledge shows like you're a very, very out of the box thinker. I never even thought about the game on that. That completely blew my mind when you said that. So thinking out of the box, I noticed in reading some of your background that you actually kind of, from a very young age, knew exactly a path you kind of wanted to go down. Just to talk about you as a developer for a second, kind of what urged you to be a developer? Was there a special influential person in your life, or is this just something that you saw? What gravitated you to basically just chase your passion as soon as you could?
It's a good question. Someone asked me that the other day, and I never quite noticed, but I think it was just a bunch of things. My father was a programmer, but right years ago when he had 386 and 486, and he was working in libraries doing digital, when libraries were going from cataloging things manually to doing it digitally, and he was working on something in the government for that. So we had a PC at a very young age, and we had no consoles or anything, and I always enjoyed. He would play Flight Simulator, the first ones, and our friends would give us those, the big floppy disks with small games.
Oh my God, I remember.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, right. And just DOS, trying to get the game to run, and I just loved the I don't know. I think that hooked me somehow, but I always thought I would be an illustrator. That was the thing I wanted to do for many years. It was only when I went to university that I started to. First, I started to play with game engines. I remember playing with Source from the first Half-Life, and doing stuff in them and enjoying it. And then like maybe I could do something with this, but I was always focused on illustration. And then I learned 3D. Like a friend of mine gave me a book like Learn 3D Max. And I read that book and I start learning it. And then I was like, whoa, this is cooler than just doing illustrations. And then I can actually put these things in game engine as people are walking in them. And yeah, so it was always between working in the movie industry or working in video games. And I don't know why. I mean, I think I like it's cool. It's cool to do that kind of stuff. And it always attracted me. I don't know why. I like to be in your imagination doing stuff.
Oh man, well, I think you're in a great industry. We're seeing right now gaming blur the lines between the entertainment industry. It almost seems that gaming is almost its own version of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just it's another chapter or another facet of it for sure. I mean, gaming is huge. I'm right. It's bigger than movies and music combined. It's and it's so unexplored. It's like I feel we're in this beginning. These are baby steps, right? The games we're doing, like I think in 100 years, they're gonna laugh at, like we started like with Pong and Mario and all that stuff, but we're still doing we still have levels, we still do all these points and the scoring and now in this generation where we started with like Zynga had this thing going on that made them very profitable, and now all games have this, achievements and XP and unlocking things, and I don't know, it's funny. I find it like I played God of War, the new one recently, right? You have this amazing opening, super realistic, right? I'm so into the story, and then suddenly you have these orbs that fall for you to catch, and suddenly you're upgrading your axe, and you have these, right? There's this, I find there's a disconnect between what you do and what the game is trying to tell you.
You're doing it for the wrong reasons.
It's just, it's not that. I mean, it's all valid. I'm not criticizing it. The game is a huge technical achievement, and I think it has its own place. For me, it just stood out, maybe because I'm old too, because if I was a kid, I would be tripping on these games, right? Like growing on much simpler games that I already enjoyed. Like these titles nowadays are in like GTA, Red Dead Redemption is like, it's crazy amazing. But I still do find that we carry a lot of luggage from the beginning. Like it reminds me of, like, if you look at the history of cinema, where, the first movies, they were filmed like theater plays. You would never think about cutting the camera and frame someone's head. It's like, what the hell? No, you have to keep one angle, right? And someone decided to do that. And then, right, and suddenly we had this vocabulary of how you move the camera. And I think games are slowly starting to do this, where we're like, I think because more people can do games, we have more people just trying stuff. Like Gorogo, I don't know if you guys played, like the Annapurna catalog has a lot of stuff like this. Florence, Gorogo, A Journey did a bit of this. All the Walking Simulator, Stanley Parable, Papers, Please, just interacting in a very different way. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that's kind of what I was touching on. My question is, I do find like it's like a lot of games use the tried and true what's been done before, and they just do it a different way. Whereas like that's why I felt your games was unique, is like first of all, being that it's a loop is really cool, and you like you said, you accumulate knowledge and stuff like that. But just that whole idea, I have never seen in play, and I do agree too that I think that you talk about 50 years from now, you'll be seeing many different types of gameplays and game types, because people are going to take different approaches and try different things, and this is, you could really make a case that gaming in itself is kind of just getting out of its infancy, and the types of games that can be made down the line could be really cool. And also about the industry, I have to say, awesome job getting William Dafoe on the game. He's awesome, and I just feel like that type of stuff too, where you could blur Hollywood into games, is something I could see down the line happening too, especially with, as you said, gaming's right now more lucrative than movies and music combined, and COVID was definitely a big push to the gaming industry. But yeah, like good stuff just all around.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. I guess I'll go next here. I just want to say, Luis, that it definitely was a great time playing. A game that I could never possibly imagined thinking of creating myself. I was hoping I could just maybe pick your brain a little bit. What was your process in creating the story structure and the overall pace of the game? And I guess a side question would be, how long was the development time, I guess, from start to finish, from concept to going gold?
The development time, I would say it was like from 2015 to now, so 6 years. But there was no rush. So that's I think I'm just gonna say, like there's this idea, like when Duke Nukem Forever was taking ages to do, and you see games that take too long. Clearly, there's problem in the studio, or there's things that aren't flowing. This was not the case with this title. It was just, I like doing game development. I don't like being in a rush, so I'm gonna take my time, and I love it, right? And once I'm done, I'm gonna do another game, and it's not like I have to rush it for someone. So I think the long development time was not long for me. In terms of the process, yeah, it was very organic. Like I actually, like literally, I started by, walking with friends and being like actually, yeah, I started with thinking, wait, yeah, if I go really to the beginning, I was working at Rockstar. Okay, this was 10 years ago or more. I don't remember.
Okay.
And we had just finished Manhunt 2, and the studio was open for ideas for new games. And they GTA 4 was in Edinburgh. They were about to wrap it up, and we had this technology. And I was like, how cool would it be if we do like Groundhog Day on the GTA engine, where we simulate every single person, and you're stuck in a day, and you can do all these consequences. But they shut down the idea. But it just stayed in my head, like it's the idea of a repetition. So years later, I sat down and I was like, let's say I had no restrictions, could I pull this off? And I started to play with the idea of a small town where you, like, I mean, the way I do things, I just throw ideas, right? And then I eliminate what's really crappy about them. So I was like, okay, what if, like, you come home from work? I mean, you leave home in the morning, you go to work, you come back, your family's murdered, something like really drastic to make you do something. And then you have to find out why they got killed and stop that from happening. But anytime the scenario was very big, like I had an idea of, let's say you have to hack the computer of your boss, and you have to make him have a car accident so you can get the computer before he does. Like, how the hell do you communicate this to the player? How does he even understand that causing a traffic accident is gonna make his boss late and allow him to hack his computer, right? It becomes super random. So I quickly realized I had to reduce, like the action-reaction scenarios had to be very clear. And that can only happen if the amount of time that it takes between them is short. So I started to shrink the amount of time. Let's make this like a night. And then the same thing with the space. Like instead of a city where it's like you'd have to drive cars, you don't know where your car goes, you don't understand. Like there would be so much complexity. So simplifying it to a very small space and a small amount of time made sense. So once I had this framing, I started to see what could I do in this small space. And that's the other thing. Like I had those puzzles of, the generic puzzle of there's a door that has a key code, and you learn the key code, and then next loop, you know the code so you can get in faster. So those puzzles are relatively easy to come up with. But then I was like, what else could be more interesting than just having this information about the world? What if the game doesn't tell you what to do, and it's you interpreting that information? And it suddenly became kind of interesting because you're reading the situation and you're deciding what to do with the situation. And because the game doesn't tell you what to do, you get this Groundhog Day thing is, am I going in the right way? The game will still, right, a cop coming in and killing you, it's pretty strong motivator to do something. But in a way, I feel, I don't know, you just started to feel that there was something interesting to explore there. So that was the first step, was just you're home with someone you care about. Your wife I thought it could be your kid, could be, could be I don't know, like it just made sense to be a couple because they would be, together in this. And then I thought maybe it could be a burglar. What if this burglar has some connection with the couple? What could that connection be? And then at the same time, just figuring out also how you would interact with the game. Like a thing, like when you play a first-person shooter, you don't think about dropping the gun and use a payphone or
Right.
throwing a rock. In this game, this thing is glued to my hands, and all I do is shoot. Same with the platformer. You intuitively know the rules of this world of verbs, and you don't think about stepping out of them. And I knew if I wanted to do a story like this, I had to have a very clear set of verbs, right? Like, why can't you drag the couch to block the door, or hit the cop with the chair? Why can't you open the window and jump out, right? Or turn the oven on, burn something, right? Your mind would start racing with all these ideas. So I wanted to find a way to, and then even the old point and click games, I don't know if you guys played, Day of the Tentacle, all the LucasArts stuff, or they had this thing where you always end up having these really weird, but look, I've read a lot of reviews. I know a lot of people think 12 minutes has a lot of these, and I think some of them are kind of tricky. But what I tried to work towards was making, like, if you have a plan in mind, like a lot of people are like, I'm stuck trying to prove I'm living the same day. I'm like, but why are you proving you're living the same day? Or like, I'm putting the watch, like, if you make a plan, I think the game kind of flows. Like, my plan is to knock out the cop, or my plan is to find where the watch is. Then you can kind of piece together things to arrive there. But if you're just trying stuff, hoping it will unlock things to take you somewhere, it's not really designed that way. So
Right.
It was figuring out all these things to make this kind of flow in a way. And then, right, I realized also, right, I need to give you enough breadcrumbs to do another loop, but I cannot overwhelm you with information. So finding the layers for this in terms of, like, the closet is a bit darker than the rest. You don't go there immediately. Maybe the wife gives you a clue to look into it. Then you find the phone, which kind of preps you for later on to see the cop's phone, and then you know how to use the phone. Or you have a couple of vents in the apartment, so you know how to use the vents before you find the other one. Or you at least you feel you're discovering the vents are darker. There's a light. So trying to find all these connections to ground you somehow, and we create a narrative in your head as you're processing everything that's happening. Yes, it was very organic. There wasn't really a plan in mind. I don't remember the question anymore, but yeah.
Oh
No,
no,
it was well said.
Oh, that was very insightful. Thank you. I mean, it's really refreshing to see that you took your time, 6 years development, but you really were able to, like, hone your vision, be realistic with the scope, and really just maximize the potential with your final vision. So thank you very much for that answer.
No problem. I actually just remembered something, like, because you asked about the story. The story came only after the design was figured out. Like, once I knew how you interact with the world, pick up things and drag them. Once I knew the environment I was in and the characters, and what was cool about puzzles, like I'm with my wife, and then I learned that she's been lying to me. How do I interpret that, or the ambiguity of some actions? Then I started to think what story could fit these elements that I'm working in, and that's only when the characters started to kind of take shape into who they were and their narrative.
Right. So you're saying the story, it's easier to fill in the gaps with the story so long as the core gameplay mechanics are there.
I mean, it's not that it's easy. Once again, this is very personal, but I think, like, what I wanted to do is explore, literally, the concept is explore the accumulation of knowledge. That was it. That's what I wanted to explore. And I ended up realizing that a narrative, right, where you have knowledge of the characters, makes sense. so a story had to be created. Like, it couldn't end up being like a very abstract puzzle game where there was. I remember when I showed the game at PAX East in 2015, there was Induction, or what was the name? There was a time travel game which was just like, blocks. You travel a block, you go back in time. Now you have a sec. It could have been a game completely abstract.
Super Time Force?
No, that's an awesome game.
No. Oh.
No, I loved how like you said, your accumulation of knowledge. Like, she would say something to you that you would take with you to a loop to go talk to him, that you would take back to a loop to talk to her again, to talk back to a loop.
Yeah.
Basically, you're trying to hold a conversation with two different people, but you can't do it at the same time.
Yeah, and not even that, but also because when you start, you see the wife a certain way. Then you start to judge her, Like, that's the other thing. Like, you're like, oh, she's a liar. She's not helping me even. She's ratting me out or whatever. Then you see this villain cop. Then you're like, wait, actually, this guy is not as bad as it seems. I I get why he's trying to do this. Oh, but so it's not only what you get, but how you interpret it. And keep seeing how far can I take that. And if I don't tell you anything about it, right, you're just discovering on your own, and you always feel a bit lost and kind of uncomfortable and a bit like, how is that experience? So it was really exploring that aspect of not only the knowledge you get as they tell you, but you interpreting that knowledge and making your own decisions. And, like, for example, like a lot of players, for example, like, they always go through the dinner to drug the wife. You can literally keep a glass of water, or they're like,
they give it away everything.
like they drug the wife. They go through the dinner to drug her, then they hide in the closet, and then the cop takes like a minute or something to get into the door. Yeah. And they're like, why can't I speed this up? And I'm like, you could open the door and hide. Like, I try to make like speed running concepts in there.
Okay.
Because you can drug the wife immediately, and you can go straight to the closet, open the front door, so the cop is gonna zap in straight into the apartment. You shave off a few seconds, right? That's what I was hoping it would come off as.
Well, that's the beauty of the game is that you keep going back and trying things differently, at least for me, or different scenarios, or how this could work, or anybody that's playing the game, I definitely would say don't go to YouTube and look up how to fix it. Do it on your own, because I done a lot, and I would just have to say that just try to do as much as it might be frustrating. Just keep on at it, and do not use the guides or anything. And I think that your sense of enjoyment or accomplishment will be a lot better than if you just go to YouTube and just get the answer.
Yeah, I would even add to that, it makes me feel old as hell when I say this, because I realize I come from that generation where, I would get a game, like, I wouldn't buy games. Like, you're a kid, your friend gives you floppy disks, you have the games that your friends have. And if you're stuck in a game like Monkey Island, if you're stuck in Monkey Island, you're stuck. I might be stuck for 3 months. I talk with my friends at school. They might know something to do. There might be a magazine at a store that has a page that talks about a puzzle and it helps you. But that's it. There's this... Nowadays, it's like, it's now. I want it now. I don't want to be blocked. I want now. It's this rush of, I'm confused. The game is broken now. I want this, and I didn't design it in that direction. And then I see there's a contrast on how games are consumed nowadays, where like, if you're stuck, I think it's okay. If you're frustrated, it's okay. Just stop playing it for a day. Think about it.
That's what I did.
Talk with your friend. Like, playing with couples, this game works pretty well, I think. If you're playing with a buddy and you're just bouncing ideas off each other. Yeah, like, frustration was kind of designed into it, so things take a bit of time. That is a bit irritating. So just chill, man. It's all good.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny you said that. A great thing that kept me progressing about halfway through the game to the end was I got my wife to help me out. She loves these hidden object kind of games. So once she knew like all the items you could interact with, we were actually playing both of us together essentially. and it was actually like an even better experience because we were like, it's a single player game, but it's like we're playing it together. So I just want to let you know that that was the impact it had on me as well.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see. It's funny. I see a lot of, yeah, like I'm checking everyone playing the game. It's pretty addictive. Because you have these people, like, for example, I don't know, like when the cop comes in, people put the watch on the table, and the watch punches you. Like the cop would not acknowledge the existence of the watch on the table, which I know he doesn't. But in my mind, like, I try to frame it as, if I was gonna rob these people to get something there in their house, and these people are in the apartment, I would not stop to pick up the watch before I talk to them, or before I tie them up or something. Like I was hoping to create something more in a more grounded way, but it's a very thin line because it can be very easily misinterpreted, and things just, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know where I was going with this, but it's a fine line that I've learned a lot. The next game, hopefully, it's smoother.
Mm-hmm. Just to piggyback off of what Apple D was saying, again with the progression and the time loop, as you were discussing there, I'm just kind of curious, what made you fall on like the 12-minute time loop? Was there any consideration for like different time loops, like 8 minutes, 15 minutes? How did you end up, 35 minutes? I don't know. How did you end up settling on 12?
So I started, right. I made it up to a night. That was kind of what I really thought the game would be like, maybe 3-4 hours. But then a loop of 3-4 hours is way too long. If you make a mistake after 3 hours, you don't want to redo everything. So I crunched it down to, like 15 minutes. And I was like, let's make like GTA style 15 minutes where time is fakely going fast. And I was like, no, this has to be real time, because I even had a puzzle early on where you'd learn a language, and you had books in the apartment to learn a language. And if you read a book each loop, which meant like each night was like 3-4 hours, if you read for 10 loops, you would learn a new language, and you could prove to the wife you're living the same day. But it doesn't feel as grounded as, learning something and applying it in real time. So I knew it had to be real time. And then when I sent the game to a festival, I had to come up with a title, and the loop was like 11 minutes and something, and I was like, 12 is pretty symbolic with time. So let's round it up to 12 and hope it matches in 5 years with the end product.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because there were so many moments in the game where I was just in the middle of a conversation that I really wanted to pick up on, that I was like, oh yeah, I got some new information, I want to check it out, and then it just cuts, and then I automatically feel like that the character there is just like, oh damn, just restarting. So just trying to rush through everything again, and again, it's kind of like a speed run, and then trying to remember what you did before to get to that moment, and then you might do something new, and then you figure out a new way of doing things. It's again, it's very I'll admit it can be frustrating at times, but it's also I really like critical thinking games and problem solving, and just being a detective. So I don't mind going through it. It's just those moments of like frustration at times. But yeah, just that whole 12-minute time loop just really, it's definitely a unique kind of take on approaching a scenario. I don't think it's one that I really see utilized a lot nowadays with the time loop. Like, what's your reaction been to like a lot of people commenting on like the loop and just general like the critical reception of it?
I'm happy. I mean, I'm happy that the concept is something that hooks people, and I mean, it's kind of, yeah. I'm happy to see people. There are people that like it, and people that hate it. I don't think there's much of a middle ground. But there's people that start hating it and loving it, or love it and then they start hating it. Yeah, I mean, what's my reaction? I mean, I'm happy to see that it's being played and is being discussed, right? That's the best that you can wish, that people are experiencing this and they're having reactions to it, and even if they're frustrated, like there's something about it that's making them want to talk about it. Yeah, I'm learning a lot about the game too, actually. Like I already fixed some stuff, some puzzles that are like the Polaroid. Yeah, we're doing a bit non-spoiler stuff, but there's some things that were a bit not as smooth as they could be that I got fixed, and there's just it made me realize. I think the biggest thing is that the way games are seen nowadays is not quite as I thought they were. This generation of gamers, like a lot of people were surprised it was point and click, and I was like, yeah, you're right. Like point and click games, they kind of died out a bit. It's an old thing, or the pacing of it, or right. Games now are streamlined in a certain way that I didn't do on this one. And there's people that are happy how refreshing it is, while others are like, dude, what the hell? And that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's a good point actually. With the point and click, I mean, you had made reference to the LucasArts games a few minutes ago as well. Who knows? Maybe with this game we'll see a renaissance of point and click games. You never know. Or games dealing with time loops and like Groundhog Day events and so on. You never know. But it's definitely getting a lot of notoriety. Let's see. Just looking at the panel here. Shockley, buddy, how's the audio at your end? You sound any better?
Yes.
Yeah, it's much better.
Yeah, I was on my way back from home, and my AirPods just kept dying. I don't know what was happening. But yeah, I did enjoy the level of detail that I didn't think would be in a game. More of like a indie game of things I could do. Like when I found the phone, I was like, oh, I bet I can dial. Like, let me try 911, and or things that I can do to intimidate that I didn't think I could do. So I thought that was a really good level of detail, as well as that fast forward button that definitely saved me a few times before to get me through before the cop came in. About his character, were you already thinking of like Willem Dafoe for that character? He just seems like he fits that like perfectly. Before, like when you were doing maybe some of the writing or helping.
Not at all. I mean, so this game started literally like just me learning to program, doing this for a year, and I got funding from Microsoft. They were the only ones who were like, dude, here's money, do whatever you want, we trust you, versus a lot of publishers who want to decide a lot of things. So at the time I literally thought it's going to be a year, it's going to be a tiny game. It was all like dialogue balloons over the characters' heads. There was no way I would do voice acting. It was only when I kept digging more into the game that it was like, actually, if we put voice actors here, this could be pretty cool. And then I partnered with Annapurna Interactive, and where we started to kind of flesh out the game a lot more in terms of, the visuals, the depth of the writing. And then when we started thinking about the voice acting, we started to think who would fit these roles. Willem Dafoe was kind of, for a villain, he would always work, but I never thought we would get him, he would be interested in the project. So I actually, the character I thought the most was probably the main character, because I think it was the trickiest one, because there's no progress in the game, right? You don't get weapons, you don't change levels. The only measure of progress is the way the character is going to behave based on what he's lived through. And if we're doing voice acting and you don't see the faces, the focus had to be on the nuances that he can pull off with his voice. And funny enough, like James McAvoy, he was a reference from, I think it's called Filth or Rage.
Filth, yeah, it's such a good movie. Filth's right.
Yeah, Filth, where the guy is
based off the book. Yeah.
Yeah, like his performance in that film is just insane. It's insane, like it's this guy going through hallucinations and things get more and more stressful, and there's some images of him like visually that I connected with. So then having him play the main character was pretty cool.
Nice. Was there any games that because the first thing that I was thinking of when I was playing, it was kind of like when I was playing like Gone Home. It kind of gave me some of those vibes, just with some of the things that you could do and like kind of like the mystery that you kept like unraveling. Or any other? Was there any big inspirations? I'm not sure if anyone touched on it when my audio was going out, but
no. There were tons of inspiration. Yeah, the game was more inspiration than films to start with, for sure. Like, so going back to when I was a kid, like there were games that just really blew my mind. Like the Jordan Mechner, the first Prince of Persia. You know, they had this kind of mocap look, and you're like, you don't know how many levels you're going up the castle to save the princess, and if you die, it's really raw, right? You really feel this guy is fragile. Another World from Eric Chai, an old game too. That like it just feels like a movie. And then there was stuff that really influenced me. Daniel Ben-Mergui, he's doing Storyteller now, but he did an old game called Today I Die, which was like a poem in Flash. We had a lot of Flash games. And this was when I was like, here are some games where what you do is directly related to what the message of the game is. And then like Lucas Pope, Papers, Please is a huge one where, I don't know if you guys play that game. Where, do you know about
definitely know that one.
I'm familiar with it.
I definitely always wanted to try it. I just haven't sat down, but I've definitely heard in depth of how it's definitely a different game, but listen to Adam Sessler. He was going in depth on it with his podcast, but it's definitely seemed like something completely different than what you would get out there. But that's definitely highly thought of from what I hear.
Yeah, and then just games like I always like Shadow of the Colossus is one of my favorite games ever, the original one. It has this, it's very simple, right? There's 10 Colossus, you're gonna kill them all, but there's this beauty and cleanliness to it that makes it very epic, you know, versus Assassin's Creed where you have this map with 50,000 things and let's catch. You're garbage collecting the whole thing, right? You're cleaning up stuff versus this majestic adventure. So that is something that every game I've worked on, or games that I play, you know. I remember on Manhunt 2, when we were working on Manhunt 2, there was a puzzle. I don't know if you guys ever played that game. But there was a level in a factory where you had to kill a guard and put his body in a conveyor belt. And no one was getting it during playtesting. And the designers were trying to solve this. Like, how do we tell the player that he has to put the body of a guard so that the guard gets converted into something, like goes to like a machine that shreds him and makes him into a cube that puts pressure somewhere. And they just ended up doing a pop-up thing, you know. If you take more than like 3 minutes, it just says. And I was like, dude, that's an awesome challenge. Like that's what I think game development is you have to say that without being that explicit. So that kind of challenges always, like, you know, in Shadow of the Colossus, for example, you have this horse that you ride, but you don't control the horse one-to-one. The horse is, you kind of tell him what you want him to do, and in a way you end up bonding him because it feels like he's alive, or raising the sword to know if you're going in the right direction. There's all these things that are very subtle but very effective versus just having like for example, you don't need a health bar in a game. You can always make the character like start to bleed more or have his armor more destroyed, like, you know, solving these things using all the language we have. Like games that do this, I'm always pretty big on them.
All right, that's
quite
interesting. Go ahead, Centurion.
So, speaking of being different, I didn't feel like this was like your average point and click. As soon as I got the little white dot on the screen and was moving around, I'm like, okay, it's a point and click. And then after a while, I mean, I'm not going to be mean, but your average point and click is like, you know, just most of the time a still image. You're actually moving a character around. At least this was very unique to me. And what was even more unique was the story. When you get into the actual nitty gritty meat and potatoes of the story. I'm kind of curious, how did you settle on a story of that nature? I mean, because it's really interesting when you first start playing the game and you can only experience so many minutes of the story before it's actually interrupted. And then by the time you're actually able to perform what they call, at least in the achievement, a perfect night, where you actually do the full 12 minutes as like basically as it kind of would have went down, and your I get the how you perceive the full night after you have accumulated knowledge and things have now changed. You've changed your opinions of people. And by the time you're able to do this, you're just completely seeing a completely different situation. I'm just curious on how you actually came up with the story that you did.
Yeah, I mean, this will, it's hard to speak without spoiling stuff.
Right. I don't want to, I'm just like, it
But
was just, yeah, it definitely came out of left field. It definitely touches on subjects that definitely a lot of people would never, I mean, I couldn't believe it went down the road that it did. I'll just say that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I totally get you. And the thing is, like, so the ending or the knowledge you get near the end was always there since the beginning. It was never tacked on or glued to create kind of a twist. The idea was, like, first you get knowledge about your wife, right? Then you get knowledge about the intruder. Then I was like, now we have to, right, kind of change your perspective on them. So have this understanding that the way you perceive them might not be the right way, right? And throughout the game, all you're doing is analyzing these two characters, but you're never really analyzing yourself, right? You kind of stay as an observer and as a player. So I think there's something pretty interesting, because all you have is how you interact with them. But if how you interact with them is directly related to your story, to these characters, it's gonna, the same way you've been painting and judging these characters as you go through, once you know more about your character, it's gonna paint him in a different lens. And the fact that you're the one doing the actions or ordering this character to do the actions, I just think it makes you ask certain questions. And I don't know how far you guys went into the game.
I'll say I rolled the credits on it, and I mean, yeah, definitely. What you walk into the game and the way and what you feel after you once you beat the entire game, it's definitely, you felt like you went on one hell of a roller coaster ride.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I was actually very curious. Were there actually any aspects or even objects, like, household apartment objects even, that you wanted to include that didn't make the final product? And I guess a second part of that question, do you see yourself revisiting this type of genre in the future?
So to the first question, so the game was designed by removing things mostly. So early on, you could drag bodies. You could combine anything. You could combine like anything that the mouse goes over could be combined. So you could not only drag, let's say, the knife to the couch and start putting holes in the couch, but you could also drag the couch to another object. But what I quickly realized is the more options I give you, the harder it is for the player to understand the results of those actions, and it just leads to frustration. Or I even wrote a dialogue system of, you start talking with someone, and as they're answering, you can move away from them, and they would stop talking, and like, hey, where are you going? And they would resume the conversation. Versus the way they're not, you get locked when you're talking with someone.
Right.
Just because every option you give to a player, like when you could put things on the floor. So players would spend hours trying, I'm going to put the watch at this angle. I'm going to put the mug with what is going to trip on. The meal used to be a lasagna that was in the oven. And people were like, oh, oven. I'm going to do stuff with the oven. Okay, take the oven. It was a soup. But the soup was warm. I'm going to throw the soup in the cop's face. So it was just removing as much as I could, so it would... Or the player, you had your wallet when the game started, but then what do you do with the wallet? It's not clear enough. So it was just removing things that would cause confusion. Like you could also give the wife, you could give the the wife a knife, so she could defend herself against the cop. But the moment that the knife does not do the same thing with all the characters, like if you drag the knife to the cop, you attack him, so you have to attack the wife. Because otherwise you start to question, maybe a certain item combined in a certain way is going to have a result that I don't know about. And then suddenly you're just guessing. So all the choices were to remove as much guesswork and ambiguity as possible.
Okay, so the whole less is more route, which I'm not going to argue with. Yeah, that's a really good result.
Yeah, there was even a pregnancy test. Like if you guys see the demo with Kind of Funny and Giant Bomb, like 2015, she had thrown away a pregnancy test into the garbage bin. You could pick up the pregnancy test. So there was a couple of ways to go about her being pregnant, and you could learn it before. But I'm like, if the present is already doing, why do we need the 2 items? And right, if making sure each item has a specific usage and as much as possible, and it just is easy in your head, right? Because all the time loop games that I know about, you always have like a notebook or markers, or at 3 p.m. something is going to happen. And I want you to hold all this in your head, since you're building all the narrative and evaluating everyone and making your understanding. If the game never holds anything and it's all in your head, I think it just feels much more personal.
Oh, definitely, totally. The other part, do you see yourself revisiting this kind of game? No?
Yes. So what I see myself, I'm already working on something that I think is going to be pretty cool. is there's certain things that happen in this game that I really like. Like the main one is, I think there's a blend between narrative and game design that is almost seamless, right? Most games you have cutscene and action very clearly separated. Like even big budget games, you fight some guys, but then when you have the dialogues, you don't control the characters. Or if you do, it's like, so keeping this merge between what you do and what's happening, like there's no break between those two. And the next one is just the fact that there's no fail state in this game, right? You don't load the game. You keep dying and you reset. And that was the way that it was solved in this title. But I think games are still doing this thing where when you make something the game didn't want you to do, you have to go back to do the same level again. So trying to kind of solve or use these two things that this game, I think, worked on is something I would like to explore more.
Nice. And obviously, we keep us posted. We look forward to any future games you make.
In 6 years.
That's okay. The gaming is an art. Development is an art form.
Mm-hmm.
Take your time.
Yeah. Better to make better to spend time with a game and, let it simmer and instead of rushing it out, right? So, that's always the best policy in my books. I wanted to touch on something that you had mentioned before about, I guess, the relationship with Xbox, right? Since this is what would you call it, an Xbox console launch exclusive. I know it's a bit of a mouthful. What were the conversations like with Xbox bringing it into the Xbox ecosystem? Like, what was it like to deal with the ID at Xbox team?
It was pretty smooth. So the way I approached so usually most developers, they write a design document and they make like a short vertical slice of a video when they try to present the project. But I made the game and I would just show them the game. I would literally say, look, there's no document, just play the game. And they would play for an hour or two and they would say, yeah. So that's how I pitched the game to publishers. With Microsoft, I just show them, they played, they were like, okay, how much money do you need? Let's talk about that. And that was it. Then there's nothing. Once your game is done, it's on the store and that's it.
Wow.
It was pretty clean. There wasn't, that's why I liked it. It wasn't like all these, but do this and there was nothing. It was just, we trust you, just go do it.
Oh wow, Oh, that's pretty cool there, because occasionally, you hear about some stuff, that happens with certain, developments of games, and some things are unfortunate, but that's fantastic that everything was so
Oh yeah, yeah,
smooth.
yeah. I mean, so like I said, like that's why I left AAA. Like you being like, for example, being art director at Ubisoft, you really see how the sausage is made, and then going indie, you see the other side of it, and the more developers, the more you're in the industry, the more you see all the facets, and there are things I just didn't want to. Because if I couldn't do it this way, I just wouldn't do it. I would keep working as an artist for more games. Like there wouldn't be no 12 minutes. So I wanted to make sure that whoever I'm going to be working with, it's not going to be stressing me out during the development. Yeah.
hmm No, and that makes a lot of sense. And having that kind of a backing from a big publisher like Xbox, Microsoft in general, I guess it's a good feeling to have that kind of support right in this development process. Because, like you said, it took what 4 or 5 years to get this out, right? So
Yeah, yeah, it's huge to have like yeah, I wouldn't so the way I did this, I was working on the Witness and I started to learn to program on the evenings. Then to build a prototype slowly, and then I would show it to friends, and they were like, "This looks pretty cool." And that's why I went to PAX East, was to see what happens if other people play it, and people liked it. That's what made me feel okay. It's worth all this to say that there wasn't really like risk in the sense like I wouldn't have done this if I didn't feel that it would make sense for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, and that makes a lot of sense, like you said. It's really interesting for us to hear this kind of stuff. I mean, obviously, we're not involved with the behind the scenes kinds of things, so it's very informative to know this kind of stuff. Shockley, what would you like to ask next?
Yeah, was that kind of where Microsoft, or where you kind of gotten deals with like Microsoft at the when you took it to PAX East?
No. So PAX East,
Or was that before?
well, the timeline. Let me see. No, I made a prototype. I was still working on the Witness full time. Then I went to PAX East to show the game. And then at PAX East, what happened was that actually Greg Miller from Kind of Funny, he stopped by the booth. I didn't know him at the time. He played it. He loved it. And then he spoke in a panel later, like the next day. And then the next morning, I had like a lineup to play the game. And then more reporters came to play, and it kind of made a snowball. So by the end of the event, there was a lot of press around the game. And I'm impressed that you give them the game and they play it and they get it. So it's not just, I have this idea, but I don't know if I can pull it off. It was literally, they have played it, they know what the idea is and how it works. So when I went to look for funding, I already had this, here's a prototype and here's all these people that agreed that this is a cool game. Yeah, so it was just talking with different publishers until there was one that saw it the same way. I'm saying this, but it took a year. But I wasn't rushing either. I was still working on the Witness, and there's a lot of game events like IndieCade, GDC, the PAX, etc., where you meet your peers, and it's a small industry. You just know everyone, so you just show them around until someone also believes in it the same way.
And as like Game Pass, are you seeing that kind of as like a benefit from like different ways that you've released games in the past? I guess maybe not sure if you have the metrics on the side of like how many people are interacting with your game versus like maybe what you let's say like initially expected, obviously making your first like independent game. Are you seeing as like a pretty big boost to like someone like coming along to interact, especially with maybe a different type of game that isn't like a typically I haven't played any point and click kind of like
loop mystery games, in the past couple of years. So it's definitely cool and different. Are you seeing it as like a big benefit compared to, I guess, maybe your traditional, releases or ways of releasing?
You mean being on game? You're asking if being on Game Pass made a difference, or
Yeah, were you seeing it as that like? Thought I knew where I was going with that, but or basically, are you seeing kind of like as a because you've probably seen it on your end from like some of the bigger and smaller games that you've like been a part of and seen released. I guess with this one coming out straight into Game Pass, so it's definitely something new for quite a few publishers or developers. Are you seeing just like a bigger boost, like influx? Like some other
there's definitely
developers
more
have
people
mentioned.
play. Yeah, there's more. I think stuff like Game Pass will be inevitable, right? We have Netflix, we have Spotify. There's gonna be. It's just as a consumer, it's easier to just have a library you have access to, which I think we just have to find a way for that to be great for developers too. It's still being figured out. But yeah, the fact that anyone could play it, I think because this game, I think it's like a movie that you watch. You want to talk about it. You want to bounce ideas around, and then there's some films that you're not sure you're gonna watch, or like I think there's more people trying it that normally they wouldn't try, and that I think creates more conversation because it's easier to access. So I think definitely, I mean, and the numbers we're seeing are, I never expected would have this many people playing it for sure.
Nice. I think I kind of get that feel. I usually go to kind of like indie art house like theater where I am, but it's usually pretty expensive. So it already kind of like, and it's nice when I go there because like not as many, you're not getting like a huge crowd, so you can actually get a better experience. But it kind of, there's some really neat movies that you would totally miss if you're trying to just go to a big traditional, big movieplex that kind of get overshadowed. Whereas like if some of those movies were kind of straight into like a, HBO Max or looks, and that's kind of where I think some of these movies are going, like into Netflix. You're seeing more of these movies that you would have seen just on, hey, these small independent movies that went to that small indie, theater in your, town, that aren't very, they're not everywhere like the indie theaters. There's not that many in many cities. But now I think some of these, from what I'm seeing, kind of like with smaller indies are definitely getting a boost. From what I'm seeing, really with Game Pass, so many people are trying new games, just like 12 minutes is in. So I definitely see where it's giving more life into those and not being, overshadowed by a big like Battlefield that drops,
Yeah, I mean it's also
holiday season. So
yeah, it's also like discoverability is the issue, and that's why you end up taking less risk, right, with these sequels after sequels or following genres that you're very likely to recoup all the money you've put into. Yeah, you're right. And also kind of you can try. Yeah, it just becomes a richer games. That was the other thing. I think games, the word game itself, it's very constrictive because you think about something it's like playing. You're just gonna do something to entertain yourself and nothing else, right? You don't think about that about certain books or films, right? You're not gonna go see Schindler's List to have fun, And the games I don't think are quite seen that way. You finish your work, you go home, you're just gonna blast some aliens or whatever to have fun. But I think the interactive medium can do more than that, and having more access to these experiences, and just seeing that they exist is very good for the industry, I think.
Well, speaking of discovery and knowing your game exists, I mean, what did you think about the praise Mr. Hideo Kojima gave for 12 minutes in his tweet out there? I mean, it seems a lot of people are discovering the game you put out. Everybody's having fun. Everybody is talking about it. And some very, I guess you would say, almost influential people that think very outside the box are noticing.
Yeah, that was crazy waking up to that tweet. It was unexpected. I think he kind of got what I was trying to do, which is awesome. Yeah, it's very happy to see him like it, and exactly a lot of people respect him and listen to the things he says. So it's great to have him help get more people to try it out.
Okay. Well, I actually
you did something right when Kojima mentions you and praises your art. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, MLD.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought you guys were done there. No, I was actually I had more of a niche question actually, because Xbox gets a lot of indie games, especially like lately, and I think like as you guys touched on before, exposure it could be exposure is the biggest I guess hurdle to go through, and as a result, I noticed a lot of indie games, they have very easy unlockable achievements as kind of like a hook for achievement hunters to get these games and play them and get that easy 1,000 gamer score. Now, when I played, and I think many others discovered, you were like my playthrough, I only unlocked the 1 achievements. Others say they unlocked 1 to 2 achievements. Now, this got me thinking. Now, I'm saying usually indie games are more liberal with this. What made you decide to go the route of making achievements harder to earn, as opposed to the majority of other indie games that are releasing these days?
I don't know for other games. Like personally, I didn't want to have achievements. Right? Is this once again in 50 years they're gonna laugh that we were gluing these things into the video games? It just doesn't. Imagine you're watching a movie and you get, I don't know, something like, I don't know. It's
you watched half the movie.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's no criticizing here on my part. I'm just acknowledging and finding it fun. It's like internet, we're part of these people who I was born without internet, right? I saw it grow. I saw it become this way to connect everyone. Then we got like the thing with the touch screens and iPhones, and then suddenly it went into the things we have now, where there's notifications. Your phone is always trying to attract you. You like, remember there was this woman who she took a photo. She got on a plane to Australia, and when she got there, the photo was viral, and she had lost her job. Right? We're doing these things now with the way information spreads, and games, right, have grown into this model. Right? Why do we have achievements? They don't. It's a weird thing if you think about, like, if you really think about it. If you think about, like, I'm trying to say this thing with this work that I'm doing, why would I put achievements in it? So I wasn't really into putting achievements in the game, but you have to. And if you have to, I just try to make them part of the experience itself, and just trying to see how can I make, because it also bothers me that this thing pops up as you're playing the game, because it takes you out of the film to look at the achievement. Kind of to integrate it in a way that, I don't know, hopefully it's part of what the game is trying to do, and be subtle.
Yeah, I think now looking on it, achievements, I wish, as much as I like them, I almost wish that they didn't, like Xbox didn't start them, because when
they're
that
made
happened,
for you to
I
like
dropped
them.
my Wii. I was like, I'm not playing the Wii. There's not getting any achievements on these Nintendo games. I'm not going to finish Twilight Princess. I get no achievements from this. And that was all on my 360.
Yeah, it's there's things. Yeah, that's what I mean about, we carry a lot of luggage in terms of, like, games still have levels. We had levels years ago because of, we're figuring out how to design sequences of things, and and there's a lot of luggage we're still carrying around that will eventually drop, and achievements, I think, is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Because I guess it would take you out of the immersion, and I mean, the way I see it, I mean, given that it's on Game Pass with all the exposure, it does also encourage replayability because some achievements are contingent on certain choices. I'll just say that. So, I mean, there is the benefit that it will encourage more playthroughs. But no, I totally get the idea that, yeah, going against the trend, it's all about the immersion and not really placing importance on the achievements rather than just the experience. So, thank you for that insight.
My pleasure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We don't want to keep you for too long, Luis, but I will end off with this final question, though, because I mean, I was reading that you're a pretty big movie fan, if I'm not mistaken, and you list like filmmakers such as Hitchcock, Kubrick, and well, a few others, to say the least. And there's hints of their work in the game, like very subtle hints. Like, how did these different influences, how do I say it? How did these different influences, like help inspire the game?
That's gonna be a long answer. Let me try to read. So there's one aspect of it which is, just wait. Let me frame this properly. Like, some movies, like let's say The Rear Window from Hitchcock. You guys seen that movie?
Oh yeah, I own it. I love it.
Right. The way
Which movie?
Rear
The
Window.
Johnny
Rear
Depp?
Window.
It's
Oh,
the one
movie
where
okay.
there's a guy who broke his leg. He's in a balcony, and the whole movie is from his point of
I'm thinking
view
of a different one.
of what's happening in right, and he sees what is this a murder? What just happened there? But the fact that you're stuck in the balcony with the protagonist, it paints the experience like you're assuming things because you only have his point of view. You never leave the balcony. Or in Memento, like there's another example I give where right by putting things out of order, you experience the character memory issues. And I think that's really clever, like because as a movie director, you have these things to play with. You have the camera, right, where you're pointing your camera at. You have the lighting you're gonna use. You have the set dressing. You have the right. You have the sound design. You have the music. You have all these elements that you can play with to tell your story. And these directors that I keep referencing, they like Spielberg is another one, but I think he's so good that it's less obvious that he does this. But like some shots in his movies, he's saying like 8 things in one single shot, and you don't even notice he's saying these things. Like from the way the characters move, the way the camera does it, pans an angle. Like there's this understanding of the tools they have and using them to the maximum to what they're trying to say. Like The Shining, the way right the character has like the layout of the hotel that everyone talks about, or in some shots things move out of place. So I was like, how can I look at video game development and kind of do the same thing with the tools that I have as a game designer? What are the tools that I have? Is the interface, is the way you interact with the world, is the way I'm going to pace the narrative, the colors that I use in the apartment, right? Like early on, I was like, okay, you're in a loop. You got to know the time. Let's put clocks everywhere. I'm like, you don't need clocks everywhere. It's a very short loop. I can very quickly with sound design make you know, and lighting, like if the light changes throughout, you're going to know when this guy arrives. And people intuitively, they know this guy's about to arrive, and you hear the sounds in the apartment. So trying to see what tools I have that I can use to do the things that I'm trying to do on my side with the narrative. Yeah, so that I think that's the movie kind of influence that I got, where these guys, those movies have been around for so long, they really know how to use everything they have at their power and even question some things. Like when I started the game, I was doing the classical point and click, where you would put the mouse over an object and have pick up, use, look. But I was like, do I need that? Actually, I don't. So let's take that out. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, just my personal preferences. I mean, I really enjoy Hitchcock movies like, even some of the older ones like Lady on a Train and stuff like that. I don't know how much of the library you're into, but man, some of those movies are just, there's subtle things in those movies that you pick up and you're like, oh wow, that's really smart, that's really clever. And yeah, it's amazing what some of these movies are like 60 years old, just to give an example, but they really stay with you to this day. Again, Rear Window, true classic. If anybody hasn't seen it in the chat, definitely take a look at it. It's been referenced in so many different cartoons and movies and so on. It's amazing. I remember a Simpsons episode that really did a good riff on it way back. Yeah, but I really I'm a big fan of like those allegories that you put into the game. With those inspirations. Really good stuff there, Luis. And again, the panel really enjoyed this game. Just looking in the chat briefly, there's a lot of really good chatter. There's a lot of excitement for your title. Oh yeah, The Shining. The Shining is another great example, of course. Yeah, that's a good one. I believe that's a Kubrick film, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Just again, really good imagery, cinematography, and again, smart little hints in there that I really appreciate. But again, we don't want to take up too much of your time, Luis. It's just looking at the clock, I think we'll start to wrap things up here. And wow, you know what? I really gotta say, it was a really awesome show tonight. It was a blast hanging out with you, just learning more about your game 12 minutes and really just other aspects of the game industry in general. It's again, it's really informative for us to learn all these different things, and I know the guys in the chat appreciate it as well. Luis, thank you for taking the time to come on the show and hang out with us. We'd certainly love to have you on again at some point. Where can everybody listening in follow you on, social media and learn more about your game?
So first, thanks for having me. It was super fun. I love talking about game development, and your questions, guys, were cool. You can follow me. There's my personal website. That's something important. There's 12minutesgame.com. There's me on Twitter at @facelétrica or at 12minutesgame. It's pretty easy to find if you just But yeah, I'm active on Twitter. It's probably the only place where I'm active. Twitter at @facelétrica. I wasn't really.
All right.
You can follow me there. And thanks again, guys. It was super fun.
Yeah, thanks. Definitely, again, really, there were some really fun questions here. And again, it's really cool to learn all this stuff about your game and the industry. Moving over to the TXR panel outros. Tim Dog had to leave early. He had a fight to go watch. But, moving on down the list here. MLD, buddy, awesome stuff tonight, my friend. Where can everybody find you?
Thank you. I just want to say, Luis, thank you for coming on. It was great to just pick your brain, see your inspiration, the whole process behind, making a passion project, and even like a little bit of the marketing side of it, what the process is of working with a publisher like Xbox. And so it was very, very informative. It was a nice experience, I'm sure, for all of us. So yeah, that said, everyone, you guys can find me on Twitter at MLD Ghost and my YouTube channel at General MLD. Great show.
Thank you, guys.
All right, yeah, thanks for joining, Luis. It was great having you. All right, moving down here, Eric Shockley, buddy. Hey, some great pointers, some great talking points. Where can everybody follow you at, my friend?
Yeah, as always, you can follow me at ShockNero on Twitter, Easy Shock on Xbox Live. Hopefully I have all my setup at the new place by next Sunday. Won't have any audio issues next time. But yeah, thanks for our guest tonight. Hopefully I get through the game through this week. Definitely wanted to experience some of the twists and some of the things people were talking about. I've got, I think, a good third way in, but it's definitely a blast so far. So definitely enjoying it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. I got to get through so much of it as well. I've been really taking my time with this title, and I'm glad I am too, because I'm just, even though like there's, I'll admit I do make a lot of little mistakes here and there, even when I know what certain things are gonna happen, but it's really enjoyable. Really enjoyable, even when you do make some mistakes. And they're quick too, because again, you can revert in 12 minutes. Moving on here, Centurion Buddy. Good show tonight. Where can everybody follow you?
Oh man, totally great show, man. Enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for all those who tuned in. I know the hour is late. For those who are interested in finding me and my content, you can find me at Centurion1307 on YouTube, Xbox Live, and Twitter. You can also find me every Sunday night right here on the TXR Podcast. And finally, I can also add the return of PTK Blam has occurred. We officially did our first show back last night on Saturday nights, and we will do it every Saturday night once again, 6 p.m. Arizona time, as we like to say, right here.
All right, good stuff. And to round off the group, this is Invader, and you guys can find my content over on YouTube at Invader Gaming. As well, I'm active on Twitter at Invader_1986. Guys, if you haven't done so already, remember to drop a like, share this out across social media, whatever platform that you'd like, and hey, sub to the channel for more. Again, game talk, interviews, and so on. We definitely got a lot going on in the show, and it's always great to see you here. But again, wonderful show tonight, guys, and we look forward to seeing you here next week. Gamescom just happened, and we got a lot of news to cover, but that's gonna have to wait for the next show. Until next time, guys, have a good one. See ya.